Hello and welcome back to Coming Home to Homemade Theater. I'm your host, Jonathan Hefter, a very special guest with us today for our fourth episode. Please welcome Dee Sarno. Welcome, Dee.
Well, thank you, Jonathan.
We're like on. We have our game show host voices on now. I'm
I love
so
it.
glad that you're willing to take a few moments today. How are you?
I'm just wonderful.
We were chatting before we started recording today. And we've had a lovely chance to catch up. I've known you for quite some time.
1,000 years.
Well, I'm one of the peripheral figures, but you were a legend in the local art scene, even when I was growing up here in the city. And so I'm thrilled to take a chance today to learn a little bit about your involvement with the arts in Saratoga and in the county. And of course, part of what we're doing here in this series of interviews is to raise awareness about really the importance of arts during this time, and specifically the state of homemade theater and how we desperately need your help. And you've been integral from the beginning to helping to keep homemade theater part of the community. So I wanted to take a moment. Just so many people may know your name, but not know your story. Can you start with sharing a little bit about how you came to Saratoga, what brought you here, and what it was like to first land in town back then,
Oh,
if you would?
actually, really quickly, my husband came here for a conference in 19, I think it was 1984, and we were sitting on a park bench in Congress Park. We had we had just come from the ballet, and we thought this is one of the most lovely cities we've ever been in. It, and we were thinking about moving, and my husband was thinking of taking an early retirement. Anyway, then and there on that park bench, we said, "This is it." We went back, put our house up for sale, and moved here.
And where were you living?
We At that point we were in Syracuse, New York. AJ was the postmaster in Syracuse and the manager of the upstate area there. So we traveled around upstate New York a lot, and actually I've been in a lot of different places after I got married. I never went anywhere before I was married, and when I got married, AJ with his jobs took me throughout the United States, a lot of different places. We had 3 kids and they didn't love it, but now that they've grown up, they said, "Mom, we really enjoyed those different places that we lived." So
Right, they appreciate. I read one of my favorite Dee Sarno facts is that is it true that at one time you worked as the assistant to the manager at the Underwood Typewriter Company?
oh yes, I
That
did.
is like that is a movie right there.
You know what? It reminds me of that movie. I'm not movie, the series. Oh my God, that was so funny. The 5 o'clock martinis in the
Oh,
office,
Mad Men.
Mad Men, and all.
Right.
And I was secretary to the office manager, and there was 40 typewriter salesmen and me, and I
Wow.
was so naive, and it was really, that's another story. Anyway.
Well, I mean, you're active with Seroptimists and empowering, female business leaders and owners. And so I see a little bit of a through line there. There you are, right? You're the only female in a room full of men in a different era. You
Yeah.
definitely have a very natural, strong spirit to you. Do you credit some of those early experiences with developing your resilience and independence?
Oh, I think so. I didn't get my independence till late in life, um, because my parents were very strict. Couldn't leave the house, until you got married, etc. And I had to go to, I took some classes at night, because the money was for my brother to go to college and not for me,
Right.
kind of thing. So, but my life has been super interesting. Yeah, and every different thing I did, um I think led me to what I finally loved in Saratoga Springs. um because meeting all those different men, different people in New York City, different lives there. I did go to the Miracle School of Dramatic Arts. And I don't know, it was in Roslyn, New York, and I did that at night, and worked during the day. So that was another experience. Did some summer stock, community theater, and stuff like that. Um, but most of the stuff I did is when I was home and under my parents' wing until I got married, really.
You did have some early performing experience. You had one article that I read about you where you talked about giving thanks to your elementary school teacher who put you in a fifth
Oh,
grade production.
yes,
Can you
Mrs.
share with
Gill.
our with our viewers the name of that show?
Oh, Mrs. Guilfoyle. Yes, it was the fifth grade, and the show was Polly Put the Kettle On.
A classic
A
Shakespearean, I'm
classic,
sure.
yes. Anyway, I was, believe it or not, the shyest kid in the class. I was very quiet. I was not outgoing at all. And I think Mrs. Guilfoyle must have had an inkling that I needed something to rev me up. And she didn't give me the part of Polly, but she did give me the part of the kettle.
Sure, the kettle. The kettle really stole that show. Let's be honest, it was really about the kettle.
It was about the kettle. So, and I was whirling and twirling and having the best time and not even thinking about who I was. It was like magic for me. And it changed my life. It seriously changed my life.
And that was where you got the bug and went into
I,
summer stock eventually.
yeah,
And
yeah, theater and, joined the dramatic club in high school. I was a member of the National Thespian Society and in school. So yeah, my whole feeling about life changed. Yep.
so bring us back to that park bench, and you and AJ and decide to move here. And what was going through your mind? And you're thinking, what am I going to do? I like this town, but what do I want to create for myself?
Well, it's funny because each place I went with AJ, he was there because of his job and everybody knew him. But I had to kind of reinvent myself every place
Sure.
I went. So, and Syracuse, I mean, and Saratoga Springs, one of the reasons we were happy to settle there was that my daughter had gotten married and she lived in Clifton Park. So that made it icing on
Dawn,
the cake.
she's there, right?
Dawn, right.
Yep.
Dawn Nolan. And she's a special ed teacher in Boston Spa. And so we were so happy to be here, with Dawn. So that was part of it. But I always knew that wherever I went, there was always a family in theater. Community theater is just, I think, really, to me, it's the heart of the theater world because it affects all those young people that may get to Broadway or may get to the movies or wherever they want. But that part of their life in community theater can help them right through their lives. So for me, I guess when I got involved in community theater, that was it. And when I got here, the first thing I thought about was there a community theater?
And was there? What was the state of Saratoga at that time?
It was 1985, 86. AJ came in 85. I had to sell the house. No, I came in 86. Um, and I guess in 1986 was actually Cafe Lena homemade theater. They were there when
For
we
the first two productions.
first two productions. Yep. And so and I did hear about Cafe Lena. But for me, when I got here, I saw an article in the paper, volunteers needed, homemade theater.
A community theater that needs volunteers.
Oh, isn't
How
that
rare. How
right?
interesting.
I know. So, and of course, I saw that and I said to AJ, okay, honey, I'm going to this meeting. So I did. And of course, there was all these wonderful theater people there.
And do you
And
remember that meeting? Where was it?
they had already gone to the theater in the park. Um,
To the
at
little
that
theater,
point,
right?
to the
Yep.
little theater in the park. Yep. So they had it in the theater. We were all like in the theater, and people, was saying, "What do you think you could do?" People could do this, and um, a, a professor from Skidmore was there, and he was looking for a stage manager or just a person to help him out. He wanted to do. He had just written a play called Maybelline. I wonder, Stacy may remember that. And he was used, and he had asked to use their theater, and it wasn't going to be a lot of props or anything. It was going to be mostly, we do it as like a radio program.
Sure.
Yeah. And he was looking for somebody to help him, and I raised my hand.
As you do,
Yeah, right.
as you have been ever since.
And I liked him so much. He was a terrific guy, and it worked for me. He introduced me to Joe. Oh my gosh, what was Joe's last name? The president of the Chamber of Commerce, Joe. Oh my gosh, Joe, great Joe. Isn't that awful?
We love you, Joe.
Yes, we do love you, Joe, but I have the senior moment. Anyway, and they were looking for somebody to help the Saratoga County Arts Council, who they'd been around for a couple of years there, but their board had kind of dropped the, dropped the group for a while. They didn't know where they would go and how they were going to go, but they wanted something in the community. And he said, Dee, why don't you go and see if you can get that job? He says, it's a part-time job. It's not going to be that bad. So I did go for the interview, and I got the job. And well, the rest is history, I
Yeah,
guess.
let's dive into that a little bit, because one of the things that viewers may know you most from is your association with the Arts Council. Can you talk a little bit about that organization's objective and scope, and was it meant to bring in the county-wide efforts? Was it really beyond Saratoga
Yeah.
itself? And what was it?
Originally they were called the Saratoga County Arts Council, but I think that was the problem they were having, is because the county is so large. And to try and at that point they didn't really have a staff or anything, and to try and get the whole county involved with this one organization, at that point we felt, when I took over, we felt we needed to start in Saratoga Springs and our small surrounding towns around us, and then from there we would hope to get out to Clifton Park, etc. So, but we had nothing in place. So when I first took over, first of all, we had to raise money, you know.
An arts organization
Yeah,
that needs money. I'm taking notes here.
yeah, right.
Volunteers,
It's so funny.
money.
Money, money.
Strange.
And we needed a name to mean something. With it, we actually took out county and we stood Saratoga Arts Council. And that could mean anything. We could go throughout the county, obviously, but for them, it was Saratoga Arts Council. And the first thing I did was get a grant from the New York State Council on the Arts. It was a startup grant. It was like $5,000. To me, it was like $50,000 when I got it, because we really had no money. I think we had $4,000. They had $4,000 in the bank. And then with my $5,000 grant, we had $9,000. I was being paid by the hour. I was supposed to work.
Wow.
I was supposed to work 8 hours a week.
Sure.
Yeah. And that was such a joke.
So point number 3 is like slippery slope of hours spent. So the job description didn't live up to the effort you put in.
No,
Funny.
it didn't. Anyway, but I loved it. It was great. I had just most amazing volunteers that helped me on. I had, we got a wonderful board of directors who all felt really great about the arts and realized how important arts are in our lives. It's like essential. It's essential. And I was thinking about that during this pandemic time too. How all so many artists, well-known artists, have come on Zoom and offered concerts, and schools that keep on going and try and put on small plays with the kids. And it's it's such a wonderful world, the world of the theater and the people that are in it. So I think I digress, but
No, it's all I see the through line. So was there a vital art scene at that time? Of course, SPAC was going, but
SPAC was wonderful. SPAC was enchanting, fabulous,
and you
wonderful.
were on the board of SPAC at one point as
Yeah,
well.
at one, yeah, I did too. I was on the board of Homemade Theater twice. Homemade Theater was always kind of my favorite. I shouldn't say that, but it was
I
my
did not send you any baked goods to
no,
get you to say that.
no, but it was my favorite board. It was my favorite group. All the
Why? What was so special? What stood out for you?
First of all, Stacy was great. Jonathan and Susan were amazing. Jonathan Foster was one of the most brilliant, creative minds, I should say, minds I have ever had the good luck to know and to meet and to know Jonathan Foster.
The founding artistic director, for
I'm the
those who may not.
artistic director of the theater, and his vision, in those early years, just took that theater group to great highs. And I mean, and they're still going strong together today, which is amazing, really, when you think about it. All
What I
those,
remember when I hear Jonathan's name, it was a lot of scarves. There was a lot of scarves going on all the time. And then he had his dog, and I can't remember the dog's name.
I know the dog was always
Stacy told
with
me
him.
in
Yeah,
our interview, but
I
yeah,
know.
the dog was always around, and and this was like New York City coming up to
Oh, he
the
was.
suburbs. He had this air of like, I'm
Not
gonna
only
come and
that, he didn't just love theater. He loved the visual arts. He was such a go-to man that if you had an art question about anything, he usually knew the answer,
wow.
which was kind of fun. And he was intense, kind of intense too, but he was a lot of fun also. And you're right, the scarves, always the scarves. But I just had a lot of respect for him, and I was so thankful that I could be part of that. My big jobs, I did, props. When we had, and I graduated a couple of times. I did lights, and the, the keyboard there. But I had so much fun doing backstage work, and it was great.
So you're volunteering, doing backstage, and I think when we talked earlier, you mentioned that you came in after they had done Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. They'd
Yeah,
moved into the Spa Little Theater
right,
for Men Who Came to Dinner. You're doing that. You're also working part-time hourly at the Arts Council, and
yeah.
you're driving that organization. What was happening in the town at that point? Was it as known for tourism for the
Yeah,
arts as it
no,
is
well,
now?
it was always is the Saratoga Springs, the summer place to be, and the summer place to be was all about the races, and actually SPAC, but races always got front and center, and the arts kind of took a back seat, except for SPAC. So there was one gallery in downtown, um, and I think that was it. So the first thing we started was art in public places,
Yep.
and we would bring different art to different areas of Saratoga Springs, and the outside outlining area. We had a couple of art shows in oh gee Well, anyway, in other small towns in Saratoga Springs, I can't remember all the names, but we did have art shows here and there and everywhere, like pickup art. It was, and we would take the artwork there, we'd hang it up, we'd take it
Wow.
down and bring it back, which was really good. But oh, Corinth was one of them. Yeah, Corinth was one of them. But a couple of small towns. We did a couple of events in Clifton Park, and from that they kind of put their own art group together. They wanted to be separate, which was wonderful, and that was great. So they did that. I don't know if it's still going there or not,
For
but
visual art,
the
paintings,
visual,
and
yeah, it was mostly visual art, and they do have a, you know, no, there's no community theater there. So we built up the visual arts definitely in town, and now, well, and after that we had some great local galleries that came in. You know, now with COVID everything's tough, and a lot of some of those small places have gone out, but we ended up with really having a wonderful downtown, you know, art scene. And also, you know, we did Apple Harvest Arts Festival,
yep.
and got art from the kids in school and hung that up, you know, and I brought in arts and education programs in the county school. I mean, in the Saratoga Springs School District. But my feeling is, you know, working with the arts is amazing for young people, and it helps develop so many different skills. Um, and it's, I'm not gonna, you know, give the whole list, but it develops so many of their things, their concepts, their vision, their feelings, their
Confidence.
thoughts, their
Yeah.
confidence. It just, you know, builds them up. And that's what I also love about theater and young theater kids, you know,
And
come
there weren't lots of theater for youth programs back then.
not,
There are
not at
plenty
all.
now, but
Now,
yeah.
not none, absolutely none, really, none that
In
I,
fact, none of those early productions, even from homemade theater, used youth actors up until, I mean, you know, the Miracle Worker or something. There's probably one I'm missing earlier than that, but
yeah,
they were all adult actors
yes,
until,
yes, yeah, till very later.
yeah,
Yeah, not Jonathan. It happened after Jonathan passed away that they, you know,
developed the youth
they
program.
developed the youth program. Because, and I think it was because Jonathan was such a strong theater man. He just, you know, that was his whole life. It was his whole life. But
You
anyway,
mentioned earlier, and one thing that stuck out for me is that one of the first things you did when you started working for the Arts Council is you applied for a grant. And these organizations really subsist on a lot of different means, but one of them
yeah,
is grants, whether it's state or federal. Can you talk a little bit about how much of your energy went into fundraising and grant writing over those years in the Arts Council and things like SPAC and all the other boards that you've sat on for
yeah.
arts?
Like I said, we got this $5,000 grant, and it was like magic for us. And it really was. It started us, you know, feeling that we could do something. And as we grew, I kept thinking of different grants we could apply for, you know, for different programs and all. And at that time, the New York State Council on the Arts was a very strong organization. Unfortunately, today, they
Mhm.
don't, I don't think they have the same support or the same amount of money that they did back then. So I was lucky to be there at a time when they really valued small community art groups. And even when, you know, when we finally got to the point where we got the library downtown, after the big library went up and the little library, original library, was up for, not up for sale, but up for somebody to take it over. Um,
And it's like 96 or something in there from
by
that.
96, 97. And I got, through the New York State Council on the Arts, I got grants for, you know, handicapped bathrooms, for elevator, for all, you know, things like that. And those were big grants. And I don't even know if some of those grants are still
Yeah.
available. and then I got grants to re-grant um, for artists, and and that program is still going strong from the Saratoga Arts in the on Broadway.
And
Uh,
people and our viewers might not know that what's now the arts building on the corner of Broadway and Spring
right,
used to be the public library.
right, yeah,
I can remember going down the hill to go to the children's section
right,
down below. I would tell my mom, "You stay here." I would run down to the lower section, and that's now the arts community center, and it
yeah,
has a theater. It has a with a funny name inside of that building too, D. And
right.
there's the Dee Sarno theater inside
And that,
that building now, where local Actors Guild, one of the many local theater companies,
right.
performs. Can you talk a little bit about how a theater ended up as part of that building?
The first thing we decided was we needed something bright and shiny right on Broadway there, right? To So we thought an art gallery needed to be in the big space in the front. So, and which there is a great art gallery still there. Then we had to do so much work for reconstruction and everything like
Sure.
that. By the time we got to the theater part, we were hurting for money, but we ended up that the space that we used, we had a booth with, a lighting booth, a sound booth, a projector for movies, and that was a great thing. We with the Saratoga Film Forum was there in the beginning, and they had the movies every night with the popcorn machine and
Sure.
everything. And that was so much fun. But we had to have a theater. We had to have a theater. So obviously, that was the first thing really on my mind. And I felt bad because I had to abandon theater for the art, visual arts for a while.
That's Sophie's choice right there.
Yeah, right. Anyway, but it's a great space. It has a small stage with the lighting, the sound system, and everything like that. But that part needs more work. We kind of ran out of money when we got to the theater, and they're constant. I know they are concentrating now on the theater, hopefully. So that might be coming, you know, becoming something special soon too.
It almost feels like the old Cafe Lena theater in there. It just that it's smaller. It feels like old Saratoga in there. I mean, it's much fancier than Lena's theater
Yeah,
was
right.
for
Oh,
sure. But it does,
the back room. Yeah,
yeah, the
it is. Oh, it's great for community theater. I mean, young theater groups that are just starting. Or I've gone to quite a
special
few
events.
Fairfield events there, which are great, and I hope that will continue.
Tell me a little bit about, and then I'm keeping half an eye on the time, and I appreciate how generous you've been with your time so far today. But you kept obviously working and volunteering with homemade theater over the years, right? And then your kids got older, and at what point were you not in the day to day of the theater or not volunteering on productions?
As the Arts Council got bigger and bigger and bigger, and then we went into I there was a lot of work, trying to get that building, and I kind of phased out on, I wasn't volunteering as much as in the early years, but I was on the board, like I said, twice, and I mean, I certainly went to plays and everything there.
Yeah.
um, but your life changes too. You're in so many phases in your lifetime, but theater was still always there for me. But I have to say, I guess after Jonathan passed away, um, uh, I was there less, only because of what I was doing with the Arts Council, because that kind of was not a like 8 hour day, 6 hour day, or a 4 hour day. It was like a 7 day week.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Because I was there so much.
Well, you've always been such a constant support of homemade theater and so many other organization's efforts. I'm wondering if you can, if you're willing, take a moment of where are you at now in your life, Dee? I mean, you and I have been chatting a little bit, but you've been such a staple in the community. Can you share a little bit about? You said as you grow older and things change, what's revealed itself as
Yeah.
important to you? How's Dee? Where are you at?
Seriously. I thought this was about homemade theater. I
Oh,
still,
we just say
I,
that.
I know, but I still need to talk about that for a couple, anyway, my husband passed away several years ago. And of course I was in the house, and I stayed there for quite a few years, and it was lonely, and I decided, you know, I need to make a decision, and I didn't want to make it when I was old and decrepit, completely old and decrepit. And I made a decision that I would like to go to a senior complex, you know, and so I would be with other people, and be able to interact. So I recently moved in to Prestwick Chase. I have a lovely 3-room apartment. First time I've ever lived alone, which is interesting, and it's lovely. And I brought things from my home that I love, pieces that I love, furniture I love, and art that I love. I've accumulated quite a bit of visual arts over the years with artists that I've worked with, and with uh, visits to other countries that we were lucky to have before AJ got sick. It's all things that I love. My art, my pictures of my children, and my family and my friends. And I still interact with Seroptimists, International of Saratoga County, and I love Zoom because I can have meetings. Um, that group is great, Women Helping Women, which I love. I still help out with Skidmore's Scholarship Fund for students. We have a big event every year. League of Women Voters, I I still work with them. So I keep myself busy. And here in Prestwick Chase, you can be as busy as you want. They have a lot of things that you can do. I've joined the Prestwick paper.
Of course, I'm sure you're going to take that place over.
No, no, no. And I play a lot of bridge, and I keep up with my committees. And my kids are wonderful. They Zoom in on me. They're in different places. Um, so I think I'm a content person.
It makes me happy to hear that. You've always been so outgoing and thriving on people and connecting people. And I have no doubt that you'll continue to be a force regardless of where you're living. There's so much more that we could talk about. Maybe we'll have to come back for a part two at some point, hopefully. And I want to respect your time, but I do have the quiz that I do at the end of every interview. Dee, I have a couple quick questions to ask you. Now, you're a former performer and an art supporter
Oh,
for years. So,
oh, oh.
and so as you were commenting that you're in your 80s now, as you look back, Dee, what show title, it could be a drama or musical, anything, what show title best describes your life and why?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I would say maybe You Can't Take It With You.
Good one.
Because I love that. It's everybody doing everything. It's such a crazy movie, and making the most of their lives. And if you don't make the most of your life while you're living, forget it.
I have to just stop it. That's there. It doesn't get any better than that, Dee. I have other questions, but I would love to end on that note because that's going to take me through my day. I have other silly questions, but I appreciate the wisdom that you're ending with on that. Dee Sarno, what a joy to stay connected over these years. I was away for a long time, but came back, and to see your face in the lobby at intermission, it always brings a smile to me and so many others' faces. I'm glad that you're doing well, that you're healthy. I hear you got the vaccine, the first
Yes,
part,
yeah,
so
my
I'm
first
really
thought, yeah.
happy to hear that. And thank you for all that you've done for Homemade Theater and so many other organizations over the years. For those that would love to learn about supporting more, please go to homemadetheater.org. You can find out lots of opportunities of ways to keep the lights on there during this very, very critical time.
Yeah,
Of course, there's no productions, which means no box office revenue.
yeah,
So,
good.
Dee Sarno, thank you for spending some time.
Well, it's been my pleasure, and I would concur with what you just said, and all my friends out there and the community that I don't know support homemade theater. It's amazing that they've done over the years. So,
You heard her. She's the boss. Until next time, I'm Jonathan Hefter, and we'll see you again for another episode of Coming Home to Homemade Theater. Bye bye.
bye, Jonathan.